On April 15, 1912, a colossal ship deemed unsinkable met its tragic fate in the icy depths of the North Atlantic. In this captivating video, we dive deeper into the Titanic, uncovering intriguing insights you never knew before. Titanic's post and paper. On board the Titanic, there was a postal service available for passengers to send and receive mail during the voyage. The ship had a functioning post office located on G deck. Passengers could write letters or postcards and then drop them off at the ship's post office. The postal workers on board the Titanic would collect and sort the mail, stamping it with unique Titanic postage stamps that were specifically created for use on the ship. The mail was then sorted and prepared for delivery upon arrival at the next port of call, which was originally planned to be New York. The postal service on the Titanic operated similarly to a regular post office, allowing passengers to maintain communication with their friends and family on land. Additionally, the Titanic had its own on-board newspaper called the Atlantic Daily Bulletin. It was printed every day during the voyage and contained news, stock prices, horse racing results, and other information to keep passengers informed about current events. The survivors of the Titanic. On the night of the Titanic's sinking, the rescue efforts prioritized the evacuation of women and children first. However, it is important to note that the survival rates varied among different passenger groups, including men, women, and children. Overall, approximately 705 individuals survived the sinking of the Titanic out of the estimated 2,224 people on board. The survival rates were significantly higher for women and children compared to men. Around 74% of the women on board survived, while approximately 52% of the children aboard were saved. However, only around 20% of the men survived. As for the division based on class, first-class passengers had a higher survival rate than those from second and third class aboard the Titanic. According to historical records, approximately 61% of first-class passengers survived the tragedy. Approximately 42% of second-class passengers and a significantly lower percentage of approximately 24% of third-class passengers were able to escape the disaster. This discrepancy in survival rates was partly due to the location of their cabins, which were closer to the lifeboats, and the fact that they received priority in the evacuation process. What happened to the bodies after the Titanic sinking? After the Titanic tragedy, efforts were made to identify the victims and provide closure to their families. However, due to the nature of the disaster and the challenges associated with recovery and identification, there were a number of individuals who remained unidentified. Out of the estimated 1,517 people who perished in the sinking, it is believed that approximately 340 bodies were recovered from the sea. However, not all of these bodies were able to be identified. Some bodies were too damaged or decomposed, while others lacked personal identification or had incomplete information. Efforts were made to document and record details about the recovered bodies. The bodies were either buried at sea or brought to various locations for burial, with some being returned to their families for private funerals. Despite these efforts, a significant number of victims were never identified, and their remains were laid to rest with their identities unknown. To this day, there are still individuals from the Titanic tragedy who remain unnamed and unidentified. Who rescued the Titanic survivors? As soon as it became clear that the Titanic was in imminent danger, distress calls were made using various means of communication available at the time. The primary method of signaling for help was through the use of wireless telegraphy, which allowed the transmission of messages via Morse code using radio waves. The signals included the internationally recognized distress signal CQD, meaning all stations distress, and later the newly introduced distress call SOS. Numerous ships and stations received the distress signals from the Titanic. The closest ship to respond was the RMS Carpathia, which was approximately 58 miles away from the Titanic's location. Upon receiving the distress calls, the Carpathia immediately set a course towards the Titanic's position and made all possible speed to reach the sinking ship. The Carpathia successfully reached the area and rescued the survivors who had been able to escape in lifeboats. The quick response of the Carpathia and the heroic efforts of its crew led to the rescue of approximately 705 people from the Titanic disaster. The ship who failed to save the Titanic. The RMS Carpathia, the ship that ultimately rescued the people from the Titanic, was approximately 58 miles away when it received the distress signals and rushed to their aid. In comparison, the SS Californian was closer, located about 10 to 19 nautical miles away. If the Californian had responded promptly, it could have potentially reached the Titanic 1 to 2 hours earlier than the Carpathia, providing crucial assistance. The SS Californian, despite being within range and visual proximity of the Titanic's distress signals, did not respond in time to provide assistance. One of the reasons for this was that the wireless operator of the Californian, Cyril Evans, had finished his shift before the Titanic struck the iceberg. It is believed that the Californian's wireless equipment was turned off or unattended during the crucial moments when the Titanic's distress signals were being transmitted. However, it is generally agreed that the Californian was within visual range of the Titanic's distress signals, as both ships were situated in the same general area of the North Atlantic. Some survivors on the Titanic reported seeing a ship in the distance, which they believed to be the Californian, with its lights visible but not coming to their aid. The Titanic movie versus reality. After the movie Titanic was released in 1997, many enthusiastic fans of the film visited a grave with the name J. Dawson, mistakenly believing it to be the final resting place of the beloved character Jack Dawson. In truth, the grave belonged to Joseph Dawson, an actual crew member aboard the Titanic, but he did not serve as the inspiration for the character depicted in the film. While the movie incorporated elements of the historical disaster, such as the ship's journey, the collision with the iceberg, and the sinking of the Titanic, the main characters Jack Dawson and Rose DeWitt Bukater were entirely fictional creations. It's important to note that while the film portrayed real individuals on board the ship, such as Captain Edward Smith and Cosmo Duff Gordon, the personal stories, relationships, and interactions depicted in the film were works of fiction. Their goal was to create a story structure and stir up emotions in the audience while they witnessed the heart-rending events of the Titanic's tragic sinking. The find of the Titanic Wreckage. The Titanic's wreckage was found on September 1st, 1985, by a team led by Dr. Robert Ballard. They used advanced technology and a research vessel to search for the ship. The wreckage was discovered about 2.5 miles below the surface of the North Atlantic Ocean, around 370 miles southeast of Newfoundland, Canada. The discovery of the Titanic's wreckage was a significant milestone in underwater exploration and allowed for a better understanding of the ship's final resting place and the conditions in which it sank. Over the years, subsequent expeditions and missions have been conducted to further study and document the Titanic wreck site, shedding light on its preservation, structural damage, and the artifacts scattered on the ocean floor. Could the Titanic tragedy be avoided? The Titanic's collision with the iceberg was a tragic event that occurred due to a combination of factors, including insufficient reaction time and navigation decisions made in response to the iceberg sighting. If the Titanic had spotted the iceberg earlier and attempted to maneuver around it, the time required to react and change course would have depended on several factors, such as the ship's speed, the distance to the iceberg, and the ship's handling capabilities. Assuming that the Titanic's crew had spotted the iceberg when it was at a safe distance, and the ship was traveling at its maximum speed of around 23 knots, it still would have taken some time for the large ship to alter its course and avoid the iceberg. Considering the Titanic's size and maneuverability, it has been estimated that it would have taken roughly 30 seconds to a minute to react and start changing course. This includes the time needed to relay orders to the engine room and execute the necessary maneuvers. Unfortunately, the Titanic's lookouts spotted the iceberg when it was too late to avoid a collision, leaving the ship with limited options to maneuver and resulting in the tragic event that unfolded. That was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it informative. Remember to give it a thumbs up if you liked what you saw, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more captivating content. Thank you for watching.